Hello, everyone. My name is Bhavesh Desai, and I work for a company called Adaptive Financial Consulting. And we specialize in building real-time trading technology for the financial services sector. And a large part of that is building UIs in JavaScript, TypeScript. Building UIs for finance is exciting and it's enjoyable, but it's also very challenging. Let's take trading, for example. We have a complex product domain. We trade lots of things, FX, equities, we lose money on cryptos, especially me. We even trade things like vanilla pods. We have actually built systems that trade vanilla pods. We have the derivatives, so forwards, swaps, options, swaptions, you name it. And we trade them in different ways, RFQs, IOIs, streaming executable prices. We have some pretty involved components that are often underestimated. I'm sure many people in this room have built blotters, tickets, pricing tiles, notional editors, tenured data inputs. They're hard, but like many people in this room, it got me on the housing ladder. Our domain is time-sensitive and mission-critical, and it therefore has to be real-time. We have multiple teams, sometimes globally distributed, working on the same code base. And we're always building to tight timelines, because we have to be fast to market. So it's important you get your architecture right early on in your project. I'm not talking about things like Angular versus React. React is better. Or what... No, they're both great. Or what CSS framework you use. I'm talking about the big-ticket items that will get you past your MVP or POC. So I'm going to talk about 3 of these items today, starting with desktop ecosystems. So here's an example of how we see many applications being built. Numerous teams contribute to a large single-page browser-based application. Now, this worked really well during the MVP. Things start to slow down and degrade. It turns out that it's easy for teams to break each other's code because of the shared browser environment. Everything needs to be built the same frameworks and libraries. The APIs between your different components is unclear. And in 2 or 3 years, the technology is going to be out of date. So you're either going to have to rewrite, or you're just going to be stuck with the same technology stack. And here, we're really focusing on building an application rather than enabling workflows. Things like Excel and chat applications and Outlook are integral to our users' workflow. So we need to account for these things, as well as the big WPF application that no one wants to talk about. And sometimes this is your only viable option, especially when you're going out to external clients. It can be done, but it takes a lot of governance. So now we have alternatives. So instead of building one large application, we can make a series of small applications housed in something like OpenFin containers that serve as part of a greater ecosystem. Applications communicate over the desktop bus via well-defined APIs and messaging. And depending on your needs, you can build or buy things like advanced window management or desktop search. And interop is not easy. It does take engineering expertise to build. But once you get this interop framework right, it's going to last longer than the next JavaScript framework. It also has a number of benefits. So teams can release their code independently as long as they adhere to their APIs. And they're free to use the technology stack that suits them. It's also harder to break each other. And probably the biggest benefit is that old WPF applications and Excel can also take part of this ecosystem. And it gives you a migration path to take some of your WPF functionality and move it into HTML. So once you've built a desktop ecosystem, it's also really important to maintain visual consistency and interactivity amongst your applications. So we don't want to waste time on creating high-fidelity visuals for every permutation of every screen. Instead, we want to invest in a design system and focus on our UX principles and patterns. And we share them via style guides and component libraries like the one you see here. Then we only need simple wireframes and mockups to build our apps. Interestingly, in a desktop environment, we need patterns that extend to multi-application workflows. So How do applications get focus? How do we share data between applications? Global short keys, and how do you do things like a federated search? If you want to see an example of a design system, check out our website. If you want to see an implementation of a design system, come over and look at our booth, something we call Reactive Trader Cloud. Another way to build a financial application faster and in a more maintainable fashion is to get on top of your real-time data. A lot of screens and components in finance involve collections of data that update in real time. For example, a blotter. So to build a blotter, we have to interleave a historical data source, that's the trades we've done, with a real-time one, the trades that we will do or updates to the existing trades. Then we have to spend a lot of time implementing things like virtual scrolling. We only want to fetch and subscribe to what is necessary. We have to be careful not to miss updates. We have to make sure we process updates in the right order. And we have to make sure that the user doesn't notice any of this. We also have to be careful not to spam the client with too many updates, so we have to think about things like batching and sampling. So to get this right, you have to do it across your infrastructure, both on the server and the client. And we do this by something called Live Query. In this architecture, the client sends a query to the server over duplex WebSocket connection. The server will then create a materialized view of what the client is looking at, and then it manages updates to the client via this WebSocket. And the nice thing here is that you don't really need to worry about all the issues I mentioned earlier. This is taken care of you. You're dealing with your data in a declarative fashion. I previously did a talk about GraphQL last year, and it's a very similar concept. It also lets you do configure things about how many updates we send the client and what to do when the rows you're looking at shift underneath your feet. The nice thing is, once you have this sort of infrastructure in place, you can just rinse and repeat it across your other components. So apply it to blotters, price histories, orders, notifications, and RFQs. And we've done this so many times that we actually have just pre-built it and offer it to clients as IP, and we call this Hydra. If you want to know more about this, please speak to me or my colleagues over at the Adaptive booth. So some upfront architecture and planning can really expedite your development process once you're further down the line. My name is Bhavesh. Thank you for having me, and please talk to us at our booth.